Hi, this is Mark from Stick and Rudder Studio, and what we're going to do now is go through the second half of this tutorial video for XCamera 1.1. And what this section is going to all be about is kind of going through some of the advanced camera options and animations that you can create. So I'm here in another one of my favorite planes from the Carinano, a B-58 Baron. And we're also at Stewart, which is a great little airport in the Canadian Rockies, just some absolutely fantastic scenery, which I think is great for showing off some of this fantastic animation stuff that we can really do. So I've got a bunch of cameras already set up here because it would actually take quite a bit of time if I showed you how to move and position each camera, but I think you're going to be able to get the concept pretty quickly. So I think you'll probably remember in our demo video we had something we showed you, which is kind of an animated external inspection. And I've actually got this set up here, which I'm going to show you in this plane. Let's just get to that category here. So I have a category here called external inspection. Let me just kind of move this up out of the way. Now in this particular case, I've shut off all the animation, so all you really can see is the cameras I've got set up. So in this category called external inspection, I've got my first camera. I have my next camera, which is just slightly forward of the wing, but down kind of low, looking at the landing gear. I have my next camera, which is a little bit further back, also looking at the landing gear. And by the way, I apologize for the ground shaking here. This is I think I'm probably a little bit low to the ground, so X-Plane's freaking out a little bit on how to render the ground. Here I am in the fourth camera, which is kind of up and to the right, and kind of looking at the the rudder and the elevators. And then I've got one more, which is kind of over here on the starboard side, looking at the starboard elevators. And then it rotates back around like this. So what we can do is we can use a couple of effects that can actually make all these things really kind of come together. So let's walk through each of them individually. So the first thing is, let's advance to this next camera. There's the concept of linear transition. So I think I showed you the smooth transition before when we did the tutorial on some cockpit cameras and the basic stuff. But a linear transition, if I check this off here, allows you to define how many frames it's going to take to go from the previous camera to this new camera. So I've got it set up right now that when I transition from camera number 1 to camera number 2, that transition is going to take place linearly over 300 frames. So just to get a feel for what that looks like, let's go back. And as I advance, you can kind of see that this is the way it's going to work. It kind of slowly moves the camera in a linear fashion, looking at the X, Y, Z, heading, pitch, everything, and it basically divides all those things by 300 and figures out for each frame over the 300 frames what's it going to take to do. So the length of time it's going to take to do that, I mean, most of you guys probably understand what frame rate is with an X-plane. Frame rates are typically you see at least, hopefully you're getting at least 30, because anything below 30 it's going to look kind of choppy. If you've got a particularly fast CPU and a really great graphics card, sometimes those frame rates can get up around 60 and maybe even 60 frames per second. So you can kind of do the math. It will vary from CPU to CPU, so you have to kind of play with this a little bit and figure out what kind of transition frame number you want to have in there to get this to work. Let's just kind of go to the next camera. Same thing here. If I've got this one also set up for 300. So if I do a linear transition there, going from back and forth between these two different cameras, you can kind of see how they're going to work. All right, let's turn this on now for all the cameras. Linear transition. This one I've got 400 frames to go to. And this one's down to 300. Turn on linear transition. So as I do this, okay, it's going to kind of go from camera to camera. I'm just speeding it up a little bit here by kind of auto advancing the camera to the end of its endpoint. Okay? And you can kind of see how this works. Now let's put a couple of other things on here. So there's a concept here of basically doing things like tracking pitch and tracking heading. So the way this works is you can either manually set up the pitch and the heading of the camera, or what you can do is you can tell the camera that you want to track the center of gravity of the plane. And the center of gravity of the plane by default, it's depends on the plane, but typically it's kind of low, and typically somewhere around the center of where the wings kind of come into the plane, and that can vary a little bit. You can adjust for your camera settings where the center of gravity is going to look at. So in this particular case, I've got here this little offset of 2 meters. I'm actually trying to make it so the center of gravity is actually a little higher up on the plane from a standpoint of the camera's trying to kind of target that center of gravity. So with this particular camera I've got set up, if I come in here and I say track camera pitch and track camera heading, you can see what the camera's going to do is kind of depending upon wherever its X and Y and Z coordinate is, it's going to figure out what do I need to set the heading of the camera to and the pitch of the camera to, so that it's always kind of looking at wherever that center of gravity is. And again, you can offset the Y of the center of gravity. You can also offset the Z. So I think if I come in here and I were to set this to, like, say, a -4. Give me a second here. You'll notice that what it did is it kind of pushed that more towards the front of the plane. And if I take it off, it puts it back. If I were to put a positive number in here, it puts it more towards the back of the plane, for where the targeting is. So I'm going to leave it like that. This kind of has it around the center of the wing and a little higher up, okay, from the center of gravity with this offset of 2. So what I'm going to do is, you'll notice I've set that up actually for each camera. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to enable the camera heading and pitch. And I'm going to go through, I'm going to do this for each camera. We'll save those cameras. And now what you can do is kind of get a feel of how this is going to look. Notice that the camera heading and pitch, it's always going to be trying to aim the camera at, where that center of gravity is. Advance to the next camera. And so on and so forth. So I think you get a feel for what that works. Okay, now here's where we can get into like joining these together into kind of one smooth, fluid movement. There's another concept here, which is, let's see, where is it here? Enable auto advance to the next camera. So by default, let me just close this down and kind of show you how this works. If I advance to the camera, when it gets done with this transition, it's going to stop. Let's give it a couple of minutes here to kind of get through here. Notice it stopped, okay? What I can actually do is get this so that it'll automatically advance to the next camera, assuming that that camera has got a transition option turned on it. So let's come back here. Oops, I took myself out of where I wanted to be. There we go, okay? And let's move back to this camera. So I'm going to say for this camera here, I wanted to auto advance to the next one. I want this one to auto advance to the next one. In this one. In this one. And on this last one, over here, I want it to stop. Let's see, yeah, camera 5. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually shut that off so it stops at that one. So if this works properly, we should auto advance now through all the cameras, ending at this last one. So let's give it a try. And by the way, auto advance only works if the control panel is closed. And the reason for that is you can kind of get yourself into this endless loop where if you got auto advance turned on and it's for all the cameras, what happens, it'll just keep doing it over and over again. So we have an option in here that if the control panel's open, it'll stop and won't auto advance, just so that you can like get it up, stop it, and go through and set your cameras up properly if they're not set up right. So I'm going to just go ahead and close this, and let's see how this looks. This works right. It should auto advance through all of those cameras. Now you notice that that join point there, it was kind of jerky, right? It was kind of immediately took kind of an angular turn in the in another direction. I'm going to show you how you can smooth that out here in a minute. Same with that one. It was kind of like a, you know, instantaneous jitter when it started to move in the other direction. And if all works right, it should stop here. And it did. So we'll get back to the beginning here. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn on this Enable Smooth Camera Joins. And what Enable Smooth Camera Joins does is it looks at all the cameras that are auto-advancing together, and at the join points, it's going to try to do an average of those X, Y, and Z coordinates. It's going to average them over roughly about 120 frames, 60 frames before the transition and 60 frames after the transition. So what that tends to do is kind of smooth it out so you don't get that kind of immediate jerky action. And all you really have to do is you just have to have at least one camera in the set that's got this Enable Camera Joins turned on. So let's actually take a look at how that looks. Now if we do this again, what you should see when we get to those transition points is a much smoother transition. Now notice how that was much smoother than the last time we did it, right? You'll probably see it more noticeably here too when you get to this one. So as you can see, you can get a really nice effect here. Now, with 100 cameras per category, you can go pretty crazy here. Okay, you could probably set up things where it'll circle the plane, do all kinds of wild things, which are actually going to probably show you a couple of great flyby scenes and a few other things that I've done with this particular plane. But I want to show you one other feature. We can actually try it here and see how it looks. I actually haven't tried this yet. But there's another concept of enabling a level camera. So in this particular case, what's happening is the plane's trying to, the camera's trying to always angle it what the pitch is of the particular center of gravity. What you can do with a level camera is it'll always try to keep the camera level with the horizon. You won't see it too much here on the ground, but if you were up in the air and you were to bank the plane, without this enabled, the camera's actually attached, you know, to kind of the frame of the plane. And as you bank, the camera will kind of bank along with that, and you'll see the horizon actually being a little bit at an angle. You can offset that by basically saying that you want the camera to be a level camera. Now, one of the things when you do a level camera is you can't have pitch on at the same time, because it's either got to be calculating what it takes to keep the camera pitch at a zero angle, or in this case is trying to calculate, you know, what pitch do I need to set it to make sure that I'm aimed at the center of gravity. It's a little bit easier to see this, I think, when you're up in the air, but we can actually try it here and see if we can see the similar effect to it. Put this one to level camera. Put this one to level camera. Just to kind of get a feel for what it all looks like. Okay, good. So let's just see how this looks different. So I'm not sure if you can see the effect or not, but by this point the camera actually would have been trying to pitch up a little bit. You can see what it's trying to do now is it's trying to keep that camera level all the way through the transition. It is adjusting the heading, but you can see the camera's kind of staying level. So I think you got a feel for what that looks like. Now what I'm going to try to do is get the plane up in the air. Okay, and first what I'm going to do is I'm going to come back here and I'm going to fix these babies up to put them back to tracking camera pitch. Okay, good. All right, so let's do this. Let's get the plane fired up. We are going to get ourselves out up into the air, and I'm going to show you some other animations that you can do, basically built off of the same technique that you saw here, but you can really see some of the dramatic effects you can get when you're up in the air with your own custom flybys, you know, your all kinds of great things I think you can do that you get a really great effect for it when you're up in the air and you can see the scenery. So without further ado, let me get this plane fired up. First thing we'll do is we'll get ourselves over to the right airport. Kind of a feel for some of the views I've set up here, right? Saw those in the last tutorial I did. Okay, let's get this thing on autopilot. There we go. Okay, so while we're flying here, what I'm going to kind of show you is some of the other animations that I've already got set up. So, similar thing that we saw before when we're on the ground. I have a set of cameras set up here, okay, that will literally animate from the tail all the way back around to the front of the plane. Okay, let's make sure we kind of stay in this valley here. And here we go. There's one camera point. Kind of another one, see the smooth transition. Now we're going to come around up to the bow. And we're going to come out. And then what I've got is another camera here that's going to basically do a flyby. I think it's going to go right underneath the plane. And you notice that we've got pitch and heading tracking, so look at what the camera does. See, as it goes down underneath the plane, it continues to track it up like that. So just some fantastic stuff that you can do, and it's just using the same techniques that you saw in the, you know, in the earlier when I was basically doing the kind of external inspection. So let's see what else we've got here. Let's take a look at a couple of other views. So here's the same one that was you know, inspection, the pre-flight inspection animation. We can use it up here in the air too. You can see that it looks really fantastic with the mountains in the background. I think it's even cool. I think the pilots look at you here too in this particular plane. Maybe they do if you're up a little bit. I think I've seen them do that before where they kind of look over at the camera. So these advanced features, they're just really fantastic for, you know, making flight videos and stuff like that, because it's really challenging, you know, to kind of do this, you know, camera panning and get it to be as smooth like this when you're moving the camera around yourself, using the default capabilities within, you know, within X-Plane. Okay, let's see what else do we have set up here. Here again, this was the interior, you know, port and starboard views we had set up earlier in the previous video. Here's another flyby scene. You can get a sense of what you can do here. And then this one's going to transition to another here, and it'll go right underneath the plane. Now you said a little jitter there. I don't have these set up as perfectly as I probably could. You know, with the smooth transition, I probably forgot to check that off on all of the various cameras. In all these transitions, I'm not moving these cameras around with my keyboard or anything. This is all done purely by joining cameras together with that auto join capability. So it's actually pretty cool, the kinds of things that you can do with the whole thing. You know what I might be able to show you is this this level camera concept too. Let's see if I can't get this open. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this to level camera. Put this one to level camera. This one to level camera. This one. Alright, now what I'm going to do here is I'm going to try to bank the plane while we're going. So I'm going to bank it to the left, if this all works right. Notice how the camera always tries to maintain being level with the horizon. And the plane's banking. Bank over back to the right now. Now if I had that level camera shut off, maybe we can actually see what this looks like. Let's go ahead and do that too. It's worth giving you a good feel for what this is all about. So I'm going to do is I'm going to put these cameras back. Pitch. Okay, so I think I've got them all. Let's try that same thing again, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to bank the plane. So now I'm banking to the left. Notice what the camera does. What's really happening is the camera's pitching around. Almost as if what it is it's kind of hard joined to the fuselage. So you can get those different effects. You know, based on what's going on here. And by the way, one of the things I've found out for setting these things up is when you're trying to set up the cameras, it's often best to just go ahead and pause the sim, because you still can, as you can see, even though the sim paused, you can still do all the animations with the cameras. So it's actually find it easier to set things up. The other thing I want to do is give you a couple of pointers here, right? One of the things you're going to notice is that when you're trying to position the cameras, I would recommend shutting off the heading and the pitch in the level camera. Because the reality of it is it's hard to move the camera around when it's calculating and trying to calculate a new pitch for you. What I do is I shut those off, get the camera basically in the positions that you want, and then what you can do is you can turn those back on as you try to animate them. Okay? So that kind of gives you a feel for all the things you can do, okay, with this advanced animation. I know it was kind of quick, and I didn't take you through setting up each individual camera, but I think you get the gist of it. With what I showed you in the previous video for positioning cameras, this just shows you how you can use the transition frames, the linear transition, the auto advance capabilities, and things like tracking camera pitch and heading and level camera and enabling smooth camera joins. All those things work together to put together those really great kind of advanced animation things you've seen in the demo videos. So what I do is I like to encourage you guys to do a whole bunch of these things, post them up on YouTube, and the one thing we'd like to request is please give X Camera the credit, okay, for helping you put together these absolutely fantastic videos. One other thing, your camera files, I should probably show this to you because I think this is probably a worthwhile thing to actually see here. What I'm going to do is shut this down. I want to show you what this camera definition file looks like. So if you come over to your X-Plane area, go to aircraft. I'll go to general aviation. I've got my Coronado B-58 here. You'll notice, okay, that in the in the aircraft directory, you're going to have these CSV files which X-Camera created. And it creates one for each variant. In my case, I've got a V10 and the non-V10 version. I think I've only brought up X-Camera in the V10 so far, so I've only got this one. This is a standard common delimited file. You can edit it with either Notepad. I think you even can push it up and you could use Google Sheets to edit it. I'm going to actually open this, okay, with, I'll do it with Notepad. I guess I don't have anything much better than that. But you can get kind of a sense of what this looks like. And all these parameters up here, like the category name, view name, ID, and all these numbers, you can edit these. So what's nice about these things just being plain text files like this is you can share them. With your friends. You could post them up on xplane.org. So if you've done some great things, you can post them up. Do keep in mind, if you share them, often people might have their field of views a little bit different by default, so they might require a little bit of tweaking to get them to look exactly right for your X-Plane configuration, but they're completely shareable. And if you really brought this on into Excel or some other tool that's a little bit easier to deal with numbers in, you can actually go in there and perfectly set up the cameras the way you want by knowing what angle do you want it to be at, how many meters away from the plane do you want. So you can do quite a bit, with these camera definition files. And because they're just plain text files, play with them in Google Sheets or Microsoft Excel or whatever your favorite kind of spreadsheet program is. You can also use them, okay, to set up other planes as long as the plane's kind of generally close in size to the other one. Like, I couldn't necessarily come over here and grab this one for the Baron 58, rename it and drop it into my Flight Factors Boeing 777. There's no way it's going to work. It'll work, but your camera's going to be in all the wrong places because frankly, the cockpit's a few meters away from the center of gravity from a 777 than from where it is from a Baron B-58. So just keep that in mind. But if you had like some twin engine piston aircraft or things like Cessnas, and they're kind of close in rough size, you can actually use these camera files, okay, to preset up those other ones. All I have to do is copy it. Just make sure you name it right. And the convention is it's X-Camera, basically the same file name, that you get for your ACV file, and then just a .csv at the end of it. So if you go drop them in there, and you got them named properly, as soon as you load that particular plane, X-Camera will see it and it should auto-enable for that particular plane. So I think that gives you a pretty good rundown of the kinds of things you can do with the advanced camera settings. Really like to thank you for taking the time. Please give us any feedback on the plugin. We have a Q&A area on our website on www.stickandrudderstudios.com. Let us know what you think. If you've got questions, we'll try to answer them. And do us a favor, by all means, go ahead and promote the plugin on your various forums and stuff. We're looking to get a bunch of people to really use it, okay? And again, thank you very much, and have fun with the plugin.